1903, Volume 4. The most pleasing and consoling words for the sweet mama. Dominus tecum. This morning, after I struggled very much, the Queen Mother came with the baby in her arms, and she gave him to me, telling me to keep him courted with continuous acts of love. I did as much as I could, and while I was doing this, Jesus told me, "My beloved, the most pleasing and most consoling words for my mother are, Dominus tecum, the Lord is with thee." In fact, as soon as they were pronounced by the archangel, she felt the whole of the divine being communicated to her, and therefore she felt invested with divine power, in such a way that, in the face of the divine power, her own dissolved, and so my mother remained with the divine power in her hands. End of the reading. The 10th of January, 1907, Volume 7. The evil of one's own taste. As I was in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little, and he told me, "My daughter, the attachment of creatures to their own tastes is such that I am forced to contain my gifts within myself. In fact, instead of becoming attached to the donor, they become attached to my gifts, idolatrizing my gifts to the offense of the donor. So if they find their own taste, they act, or rather they do not, they just satisfy their taste. If there is no taste, they do nothing. So one's own taste forms a second life in the creatures, but miserable ones, they do not know that where one's own taste is present, the divine taste can hardly be, even in the very holy things. So in receiving my gifts, graces and favours, she must not appropriate them as her own things, making of them a taste for herself, but must keep them as divine tastes, using them in order to love the Lord more and being ready to sacrifice them to that very love." End of the reading. The 10th of January 1911, Volume 10. When the priests do not occupy themselves only with God, they become withered, because they do not participate in the influence of grace. Continuing in my usual state, as I was praying my always lovable Jesus to dissolve the obstacles which prevented these reunions, and to manifest to us the way which best pleased him, blessed Jesus came for a little while and told me, "My daughter, the point which I most care about and which I cherish the most is to detach the priest perfectly from his family. Let them give everything they have to their families, keeping for themselves only that which is personal. And since they are to be maintained by the Church, justice demands that things must end up there where they come from. That is, everything which they may have must serve to maintain themselves and to expand the works for my glory and for the good of the people. Otherwise I will not render the peoples generous toward them. Not only this, but they themselves will separate from their families with their bodies, but not with their hearts. And therefore 1,000 avidities, who can make more profit, and huffiness among them if one is assigned a more lucrative position than someone else, so as to be able to give to their families. They themselves will see in practice how many evils will come if they touch this most essential point, how many disunions, jealousies, rancours, and the like. I am content with having fewer of them, rather than having this work so much wanted by me ruined. Ah, my daughter, how many Hananiahs, Jeremiah chapter 28, will come out, and how well they will know how to defend, to support, to excuse this so well-liked idol of interest. Ah, only with those who consecrate themselves to me do I have this misfortune, that instead of caring about me, about my honour, my glory and about the sanctification which befits their state, they use me only as a cover, while their purpose is to care about their families and their grandchildren. Ah, it is not so for those who give themselves to the world. Rather, they try to strain their families, and if they cannot pull, they arrive at denying their own parents. But when the priest does not occupy himself only with my glory and with the offices pertaining to the priestly ministry alone, he is nothing but a dislocated bone, which gives pain to me, pain to himself, and pain to the people, and renders his vocation a frustrated one. And since when a bone is not in its place, it always gives pain, and by not participating in the humours of the body, with time withers, and it is necessary to sever it because of its uselessness, as much as because it gives pain to the other members. The same with the priests. When they do not occupy themselves with me alone, being like a bone dislocated from my body, they become withered, because they do not participate in the influence of my grace. And I hold them and hold them, but if I see their hardness, I cast them away from me. And do you know where? Into the deepest hell. Then he added, write this, let them tell the Father to whom I entrust this mission for priests to remain firm on this point and to make it untouchable. Tell him also that I want him on the cross, always crucified with me. End of the reading. The 10th of January 1917, Volume 11, How Sanctity is Formed of Little Things. This morning my lovable Jesus told me, my daughter, sanctity is formed of little things. So one who despises the little things cannot be holy. It would be like someone who despises the little grains of wheat, which as many of them are united together form the mass of the wheat, and by neglecting to unite them, he would cause the necessary and daily nourishment for the human life to be lacking. In the same way, one who neglected to unite many little acts together would cause the nourishment of sanctity to be lacking, and just as one cannot live without food, in the same way without the food of the little acts, the true shape of sanctity and the mass sufficient to form sanctity would be lacking. End of the reading. The 10th of January 1921, Volume 12, The Fiat Mihi of the Most Holy Virgin. God wants a second yes in his will. The Fiat of Louisa. I was concerned about what is written above, and I said to myself, I don't know what Jesus wants from me, yet he knows how bad I am and how good at nothing. And Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, remember that years ago I asked you if you wanted to live in my will, and since I wanted you in my will, I wanted you to pronounce your yes in my volition. This yes was bound to an eternal point, and to a will which will never end. This yes is in the centre of my volition, surrounded by infinite immensity, and if it tries to go out, it almost cannot find the way. Therefore, at your little oppositions, at some discontent of yours, I laugh, and I amuse myself, because I see you like those people who are bound by their own will in the depth of the sea, and wanting to go out, they find nothing but water. And since they are bound in the depth of the sea, they feel the bother of wanting to get out, and in order to remain tranquil and happy, they plunge themselves even more into the depth of the sea. In the same way, in seeing you perplexed, as though wanting to go out, and in seeing that unable to do it, being bound by your own yes, you plunge yourself even more into the depths of my will. I laugh, and I amuse myself. And then do you think it is something trivial and easy to move from within my will? you would move an eternal point. And if you knew what it means to move an eternal point, you would tremble with fright. Then he added, I asked the first yes in my fiat of my dear Mama, and oh, the power of her fiat in my will. As soon as the divine fiat met with the fiat of my Mama, the two became one. My fiat raised her, divinized her, overshadowed her, and with no human intervention conceived me, the Son of God. Only in my fiat could she conceive me. My fiat communicated to her immensity, infinity, fecundity in a divine manner, and therefore the immense, eternal, infinite one could be conceived in her. As soon as she said, Fiat mihi, not only did she take possession of me, but she overshadowed all creatures and all created things. She felt within herself the life of all creatures, and from that moment she began to act as the mother and queen of all. How many portents does this yes of my Mama not contain? If I wanted to tell them all, you would never stop listening. Now I asked the second yes in my will, of you, Louisa, and you, though trembling, pronounced it. This yes in my volition will accomplish its portents. It will have its divine fulfillment. You, follow me. Plunge yourself more deeply into the immense sea of my will, and I will take care of everything. My Mama did not think about how I would manage to incarnate myself in her. She just said, Fiat mihi, and I took care of how to be incarnated. So you will do. End of the reading. The 10th of January, 1926, Volume 18. The way and the crafting which the divine will makes in all created things in order to reach the creature, so that she may place the final point of its fulfillment. I was fusing all of myself in the holy divine volition, and the littleness of my mind wandered within it. I could see it everywhere and in every place, always in the act of operating in the whole creation. Oh, how I would have wanted to follow it, in order to give it my little requital of love in everything it was doing. My thank you, my profound adoration, my meagre company. Now while I was thinking of this, my adorable Jesus moved in my interior, telling me, My daughter, my will is always on the way in the created things in order to go towards creatures. But who fulfills it? Who places the final point on the work of my will? The creature, or rather the creature who takes all created things as the fulfillment of my will. My will makes its way in the seed as it makes the earth receive it, giving it the virtue of making it germinate and multiply. It performs its crafting by calling the water to water it, the sun to fecundate it, the wind to purify it, the cold to make it take root, the heat to develop it and make it reach the proper maturity. Then it gives virtue to the machines to cut it, to thresh it, to grind it, so as to be able to give it the substance of bread. And calling the fire to cook it, it offers it to the mouth of the creature, that she may eat of it and preserve her life. See then how long a way and a crafting has my will done in that seed, how many things it has called over that seed, to make it reach as bread the mouth of the creatures. Now who does the final step on the way of my will, and the fulfillment of the final act of my supreme volition? One who takes that bread and eats it as bearer of the divine will within it. And as she eats that bread, she eats my will in it, to increase the strength of her body and soul, as the divine will's fulfillment of everything. The creature, one can say, is the centre of the rest to which my will aspires in all the ways and crafting it makes in all created things, in order to reach the creature. The same with all other created things which serve man. My will makes its way in the sea and works in the multiplication of the fish. It makes its way on the earth, and it multiplies plants, animals, and birds. It makes its way in the celestial spheres in order to have everything under its eyes, so that nothing may escape it, and it may make itself feet, hands, and heart for each creature, to offer each of them the fruit of its innumerable harvests. But all its feast is only for those who take of its own as the final point and fulfillment of its supreme volition. If it wasn't for my will, which as its fiat was released, left itself on the way in all created things, in order to make them reach man, so that the supreme fiat might have its first place in the one for whom all things had been created, therefore being the ruler and actor of the very life of the creature, all things would remain paralyzed, and like many painted pictures in which the life of the things that they portray is absent. So, poor creature, if my will withdrew from making its way in all created things, these would all remain like painted pictures, no longer producing the good that each thing contains toward man. Therefore I can say that it is not created things that serve him, but it is my will, veiled, hidden, that makes itself the servant of man. Is it not right then, and the most sacred duty, for him to look at my supreme will in all things, and to fulfill it in everything, and returning the service to serve the one who does not disdain to serve him, even in the smallest things? And I feel as though compensated, repaid of my crafting, when I see that they reach him and he takes them as the fulfillment of my will. And therefore I make feast, because the purpose of my long way in the created things has obtained my intent, and the fulfillment of my will realized in the creature. It happens to my will as to an actor who must present his show to the audience. Poor one, how many hidden works, how many vigils, how many preparations, how much art does he not prepare, even in his movements, so that his postures may make the audience now smile, now cry? In all this crafting, the actor does not make feast. On the contrary, he sweats, toils, and labours. And when everything seems to be prepared, he prepares himself to call the public to see his show. And the more people he sees, the more he feels joy arise in his heart. For who knows, he might be able to make a beautiful feast. But the true fulfillment of his feast is when, the show having been performed, full-handed, he feels coins of gold and silver flow in his hands, as appreciation and triumph of his show. But if after so many preparations he sets everything up, he plays and plays trumpets, but nobody shows up, or just a few people who leave him alone at the first acts of the show, poor one, how he suffers, and the hope of his feast turns into mourning. Who is it that so much embittered that poor actor, so capable and kind in performing his scenes? Ah, the ungrateful people, who did not even want to be spectators of the scenes of that poor actor. Such is my will, which, like capable actor, prepares the most beautiful scenes in order to amuse man in the theatre of the whole creation, not to receive, but to give. It prepares scenes of light, of the most refulgent, scenes of flowerings and of beauties, the most radiant, scenes of strength in the roaring of the thunder, in the bursting of the thunderbolt, in the continuous rising of the waves, and even on the height of the highest mountains. The most moving scenes of a baby who cries, shivers, and is numb with cold. Sorrowful and tragic scenes of blood, and even of death, in my passion. No actor as capable as he might be can match me in the variety of my loving scenes. But, alas, how many do not look at my will in all these scenes? and do not take the substance of the fruit which is in them, and turn the feasts which my will prepared in creation and in redemption into mourning. Therefore, my daughter, let nothing escape you. Take all things as a gift that my will gives you, whether they are small or great, natural or supernatural, bitter or sweet. Let them all enter into you as gifts and as the fulfillment of my will. End of the reading. The 10th of January 1930, Volume 27. One who lives in the divine will belongs to the divine family. Different ways of belonging to God. Example of a kingdom. Some live in God, some outside of God. Though I felt abandoned in the divine fiat, I also felt all annihilated, but so much that I saw myself as littler than an atom, and I thought to myself, how miserable, little and insignificant I am. And my adorable Jesus, interrupting my thought, making himself felt and seen, told me, my daughter, whether little or great, you belong to our divine family. You are a member of it, and this is enough for you. Even more, it is everything for you, and is the greatest glory and honour you could possess. And I, my love, we have all come out of you, and we all belong to you. Therefore it is no wonder that I belong to you. And Jesus, indeed everyone belongs to me by bonds of creation, but there is great difference from one who belongs to me not only by bonds of creation, but with bond of fusion of wills. That is, mine is her sole and only will. I can say that these belong to me with bonds of true family of ours, because the will is the most intimate thing that can exist, both in God and in the creature. It is the essential part of life. It is the director, it is the dominator, that has the virtue of binding with inseparable bonds God and the creature. And from this inseparability it can be recognized that she belongs to our divine family. Does this not happen inside a kingdom? All belong to the king, but in how many different ways they belong. Some belong as people, some as army, some as ministers, some as sentries, some as courtiers, another as the queen of the king, and others as his children. Now who belongs to the royal family? The king, the queen, their children. All the rest of the kingdom cannot be said to belong to the royal family, though they belong to the kingdom. They are obliged to laws, to subjection, and rebels are put in jail. Therefore, even though all belong to us, but in how many different ways, and only who lives in our divine will lives in our midst, our divine fiat brings her to us on its lap of light into our inmost divine womb, nor can we put her outside of ourselves. In order to do that, we would have to put our divine volition outside of ourselves. That we cannot do, nor do we want to. On the contrary, we are happy to have her, to cuddle her as our dear memory, when our love overflowing issued the creation, wanting the creature to live in our inheritance of the divine will, and to amuse herself with her Creator, with her innocent smiles. And if you see yourself little, it is the exuberant love of my fiat that is all attention and jealousy over you, that concedes you not one act of your human will. Therefore the human has no growth, and you feel yourself always little. And this is because my will wants to form its life in your littleness. And when its divine life grows, the human life has no reason to grow. Therefore you must content yourself with remaining always little. Then I continued my abandonment in the holy will. My sweet Jesus added, my daughter, one who lives in my divine fiat lives in God. Therefore she possesses and can give the goods that she possesses. The divine being surrounds her everywhere, in such a way that she sees, feels, touches nothing but God. In him she delights. Him alone she comprehends and knows. Everything disappears for her, and what is left to her is only the memory that while she finds herself in her God, she is still a pilgrim. And as a pilgrim, she must plead for her brothers because, finding herself in the condition of giving the goods she possesses, she must give according to their dispositions. Don't you remember years ago when I would show you how I would place you inside my heart and everything would disappear for you and you would enjoy it and no longer wanted to go out? And I, to make you remember that you were a pilgrim, would place you outside at the door of my heart or in my arms to let you see the evils of the mankind so that you would plead for them. And you were displeased with me, for you did not want to go out of my heart. It was the beginning of the living in my divine will that you felt in my heart, exempt from any danger, free from all evils, because God himself posts himself around the happy creature to keep her defended from everything and from everyone. On the other hand, one who does my divine will and does not live in it finds herself in the condition of being able to receive but not to give. And since she lives outside of God, not in God, she sees the earth, feels the passions that put her in continuous danger and give her an intermittent fever, such that they feel now healthy, now sick, now they want to do good, now they get tired, they are bored, they become irritated and leave good. They are just like those who do not have a home in which to be safe, but live in the middle of the street, exposed to cold, to rain, to the scorching sun, to dangers, and they live of alms, just penalty for one who could live in God, while she contents herself with living outside of God. End of the reading. The 10th of January 1937, Volume 34. Braiding between the divine volition and the human. Tenderness of Jesus for one who lives in his volition, even to feeling himself happy to have cried and suffered. The refuge of the works of God. I felt myself under the eternal waves of the fiat, and my poor mind runs, it always runs, in order to be invested, and the waves run in order to invest me, and this mutual investing forms the most beautiful rest for both parties. But while I ran, my highest good Jesus, stopping me, told me, "My daughter, how beautiful is the course of my fiat with the daughter of my divine will. A braiding happens between the one and the other. All created things in which my volition runs see that the little thread of the human volition braids everything, and my fiat braiding it renders it extendable in all her acts. It seems that it is not content if it does not see this thread of the human volition in the sky, in the sun, in everything. It is a contest that forms. The divine volition wants to invest the human, and the human volition wants to let itself be invested by it." And surprised, I said, "But how can it be that the human volition, so little, can extend in all created things, and together with the fiat embrace the great vastness of the whole creation?" And my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, do not marvel. Since all things were created for the creature, it was just, decorous, that the soul and the human will would be able to invest and embrace everything. They would lord over everything and would possess greater marvels that the creation itself does not possess. More so, united with my will, where can the creature not reach? She cannot embrace our immensity because it is not given to anyone to be able to embrace it, but everything that has been done for her, provided she remains in our fiat, was given to her by us. The right of being able to enter everywhere, to embrace everything, and to make our works hers. And my fiat would not be able to be, it would feel the purpose torn from it, if it did not find the human volition in its works that, wanting to live together, recognizes in them its works, how much it has loved her and how it wants to be loved. Therefore my will is all I. It is as spying, in order to see when the creature is about to do a little act, an act of love, a breath, a heartbeat, in order to invest it with the power of its breath, and say to her, my works I have done for you, and you must work for me. Therefore what you do is mine, it is my right, as my works are your right. These are the laws of living in my volition. The yours and mine cease on both parts. They form one single act and possess the same goods. But this is not everything. For one who lives in our fiat, this thread of the human volition runs in my conception, in my birth, in my infantile tears, in my sufferings. Listen to a very tender thing. When this thread of the human volition braids mine and mine hers, investing all the acts and sufferings of your Jesus, I feel the joy and the purpose of being conceived and born. I feel happy to have cried for her love. Rather, my tears are stopped on my face, and seeing that the human volition impearls mine with hers, kisses them, adores them, loves them, oh, how happy and victorious I feel that my tears and sufferings have conquered the human volition, since I feel it flow in all my acts, and even my death itself. Therefore, as there is nothing that we have not done for their love, so there is nothing that my volition does not call this human volition in. So as to be more secure, it braids it with it. And with it there is no danger that it will leave her behind. And with an emphasis of indescribable love, it tells her, my will is yours, my works are yours. Recognize them, love them, never stop, run, fly, do not let anything escape you. You would lose a right in this that you do not know and possess, and you would give me a sorrow that in my will I do not find yours braided in my works. And I feel the purpose torn from me, betrayed in love, and as a father who, while he has his children, he does not find them in his works, in his possessions, in his dwellings. They are far away from him, and they lead a life that is poor and unworthy of such a father. Therefore the anxieties, the sighs, the longings of my fiat are incessant. They would move heavens and earth. They would not spare me anything, provided the creature would live harmonized with it and would be possessor of its own goods. In addition to this, everything that we have done, as much in creation as in redemption, is all in act to give itself to man. They hang over his head, but they are as suspended without being able to give themselves, because he does not know them and does not call them and does not love them, in order to enclose them in his soul, so as to receive such a good. Now, one who possesses our volition, our works, my whole life that I pass down here, finds the refuge, the space, the room for where to be able to continue my life, my works, and the soul acquires the practicing act and converts into her nature the works and my life. In fact, this creature is the refuge of our sanctity, of our love, and the life of our will. And when our love, not being able to contain it, wants to give in excesses, we find refuge in her, and we give outlet to our love, and we pour forth such charismas of graces that the heavens are amazed, and trembling they adore our divine will operating in the creature. End of the reading. The 10th of January 1938, volume 35. The first sermon that the little King Jesus preached to the children of Egypt, how each of them had within his heart the celestial Father who loved them and wanted to be loved. I was doing the round in the divine fiat, and oh, how I yearned that no act might escape me. of all that it has done, both in the creation and the redemption. I feel that I lack something if I don't recognize all that it did, loving it, kissing it, squeezing it to my heart as if it were mine. The divine volition would remain displeased if one who lives in it did not know all of its acts, and if it couldn't find the little I love you from its beloved one in everything it did. There is nothing it did not do for this creature. So I arrived to follow the point where the celestial baby was in Egypt in the act of taking his first steps. I kissed his steps. I placed my I love you in every step he took, and I asked him for the first steps of his will for all human generations. I tried to follow him in everything. If he prayed, if he cried, I asked that his will might animate all the prayers of the creatures, and that his tears might regenerate the life of its fiat in the human family. So while I was attentive in following him in everything, the little baby king, visiting my poor soul, said to me, "Daughter of my will, how happy I am when the creature does not leave me alone. I feel her behind me, in front of me, and inside all my acts. Now you must know that my exile in Egypt was not without conquests. When I was about 3 years old, from our little hovel I could hear the children playing and shouting in the street, and as little as I was, I went out in their midst. As soon as they saw me, they ran around me, competing with themselves for who could get the closest to me, because my beauty, the enchantment of my gaze, and the sweetness of my voice was such that they felt enraptured for love of me. So they would throng around me, loving me so much that they could not detach themselves from me. I too love these children, so I gave my first little sermon to these little ones, adapting myself to their tiny capacity, since when love is true it not only tries to make itself known, but also to give all that may render one happy in time and eternity. Or so, since possessing innocence, they could easily understand me. And would you like to know what my sermon was about? I said to them, "My children, listen to me. I love you very much, and I want to make you know about your origin. Look up at heaven. Up there you have a celestial Father who loves you very much, and who was not satisfied to be your Father only from heaven, to guide you, to create for you a sun, a sea, a flowery earth to make you happy, but loving you with exuberant love, he wanted to descend inside your hearts, to form his royal residence in the depth of your souls, making himself sweet prisoner of each one of you. But to do what? To give life to your heartbeat, breath and motion. So as you walk, he walks in your steps. He moves in your little hands. He speaks in your voice. And because he loves you very much, as you walk or move, now he kisses you, now he squeezes you, now he hugs you and carries you triumphantly as his own dear children. How many hidden kisses and hugs our Celestial Father does not give you. But since, being inattentive, you didn't let your kiss meet his kiss, and your hugs meet his paternal embrace, he remained with the pain that his children neither hugged him nor kissed him. My dear children, do you know what this Celestial Father wants from you? He wants to be recognized within you as having his own place in the center of your souls. And since he gives you everything, there is nothing he does not give to you. He wants your love in everything you do. Love him. Let love be always in your little hearts, your lips, your works, in everything. And this will be the delicious food that you will give to his paternity. He loves you very much and wants to be loved. Nobody can ever love you as he loves you. It is true that you have a Father on earth, but how different from the love of the Celestial Father. Your Father on earth does not always follow you, watch over your steps, or sleep together with you, nor does he palpitate within your heart, and if you fall, he may not even know about it. On the other hand, your celestial Father never leaves you. If you are about to fall, he gives you his hand, not to let you fall. If you sleep, he watches over you. And even if you play and do something impertinent, he is always with you and knows everything you do. Therefore love him very, very much. And getting more excited, I told him, give me your word that you will always, always love him. Say together with me, we love you, our Father who are in the heavens. We love you, our Father who dwells in our hearts. My daughter, at my word, some children remained moved, some enraptured, some squeezed themselves to me so much that they wouldn't let me go. I made them feel the palpitating life of my celestial Father inside their little hearts, and they rejoiced and made feast, because they no longer had a Father who was far away from them, but inside their own hearts. And to make them firm and give them the strength to depart from me, I blessed those children, renewing upon them our Creative Father, invoking the power of the Father, the wisdom of myself the Son, and the virtue of the Holy Spirit. And I told them, go, you will return. So they left. But they would come back the following days, almost in a crowd, a throng of children. They set themselves to spy when I was about to go out, and to see what I was doing in our hovel. And when I went out, they would clap their hands, making feast and shouting so much that my mother would come out the door to see what was happening. Oh, how enraptured she would remain in seeing her son speaking to those children with so much grace. She felt her heart bursting with love and could see the first fruits of my life down here, since none of these children who listened to me, not a single one of them, was lost. Knowing that they had a Father inside their hearts was like a deposit to be able to own the celestial fatherland, to love that Father who was in heaven as well. My daughter, this sermon that I, as a little baby, gave to the children of Egypt was the foundation, the essence of the creation of man. It contains the most indispensable doctrine and the highest sanctity. It makes love arise in every instant, the love between the Creator and the creature. What pain in seeing many little lives that do not know the life of a God within their souls. They grow without divine paternity, as if they were alone in the world. They do not feel and do not know how much they are loved. So how can they love me? Without love the heart hardens, and the life is degraded, and, poor youth, they give themselves to the gravest crimes. This is a pain for your Jesus, and I want it to be a pain for you as well, so that you pray for many, that they may be taught that I am in their hearts, that I love and I want to be loved. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.